So I was on Reddit the other day looking at the subreddit called Small Business, and this woman was on there asking for advice because she had spent over $100,000 just to launch her brand. And she had zero sales to show for it. So she didn't know what to do. At this point, she was out of money, obviously, and she couldn't really get rid of the inventory she had. So I asked her, I was interested in what happened in the first place. I was like, did you get taken advantage of? Did you produce too much inventory? Like, how did you spend this much money? And she said that both things happened. She went to this full service development house, and I guess she thought this was a normal amount to spend. And it was really, really sad. So I don't want this to happen to anyone. Today, we are going to talk about this and more. I'm going to walk you through all the components of starting your fashion brand. So hopefully you will know what's normal and you won't get taken advantage of. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, welcome to The Thread. My name is Kendall. I am a former mentor for people starting their fashion brands from scratch. I'm also a Parsons graduate with a fashion design degree, and I had my own women's wear line for about 7 years, which I just closed earlier this year, which I'm sure I'll talk about at some point. So at this point, I just have a lot of advice to give. And after mentoring so many people, that usually came to me or the program I worked for after trying to do it on their own for so long, I'd hear the same things over and over. The same thing that happened to me. I didn't know what to do. I was confused, didn't know what things should cost. A lot of people got taken advantage of or almost got taken advantage of. So I don't want that to happen to anyone ever. So that's what we're going to talk about. How much should it actually cost to start a fashion brand? So I'm going to walk you through all the components that go into it. So hopefully you will be educated, you will be level-headed, you will know what is normal and what isn't. And my goal with this video and this whole channel that I'm starting is really, I want to see more independent brands succeed. I really do, because I don't know if you've seen the independent fashion brand landscape recently, but it's pretty grim. A lot of brands have closed, a lot of brands that I thought, were doing pretty well. And then instead I'm seeing these awful watered down brands like Quince all over the place. In every single ad that I get, I'm seeing Quince. And I'm like, where are all the creative, independent brands started by, regular people that are so creative? This is what I want to see. And I'm sure this is what you want to do. So let's get into it. Now, I've come up with 7 factors that go into the end cost of your brand. And the reason why I can't just give you one number is because it just completely depends on what you're doing, right? Everybody's going to be doing something a little bit different. Some people are going to be doing, getting inexpensive fabric. Some people expensive fabric. Some people will produce a lot. And the designs are very complex. Something else might be more simple. So hopefully, if you watch a short video, you'll have all these factors in mind as you start to source your fabric, as you talk to a pattern maker, and you'll kind of know, okay, this is a normal amount to spend for me and my brand, and this might not be. So I'm going to kind of go through these really fast because I'm going to be breaking down each one more in depth in future videos. I kind of want to keep these videos kind of short and easily digestible. So I will be breaking most of these things down. But if there's something you really want me to cover next, please leave it in the comments and let me know. Okay, so number 1, the cost of your fabric per yard. So as you start to source wholesale fabric, and I do recommend doing this, pretty much at the beginning because it can really take a while to find exactly what you want. You'll start to get an idea, okay, is this going to be like $5 a yard? Am I using very expensive custom printed silk fabric that maybe costs $35 a yard? Maybe you're doing ball gowns or wedding gowns or something like that. On the other hand, maybe the inexpensive fabric is you're doing baby clothes or t-shirts or something that's not going to cost a lot. The cost of your fabric per yard is something you're going to keep in mind throughout, because you're going to have to order fabric for samples and of course fabric for production, and that's going to be a big one. Number two, of course, is how much fabric you'll use, like I said. So if you're doing baby clothes, right, you might get away with just needing 50 or 100 yards for everything, for your samples, for production, depending, maybe you're doing a very small amount. In contrast, if you're doing those big, expensive custom ball gowns, maybe each dress takes like 6 yards of fabric, that's gonna really add up too in the end. Now, I wanna interject here, just in case this thought crossed your mind, you do not need to change your idea or make your idea cheaper because you're worried your fabric is too expensive. Everybody does this, and you don't need to even think about this, okay? You can absolutely sell those expensive custom ball gowns. So please don't think that I'm saying you need to change your idea or make it cheaper, okay? This is just something to keep in mind for your end cost. Okay, number three, this is a big one, how many styles you're developing. So say you're doing a brand all about dresses, you're doing boho dresses or something like that, and you decide to do 4 dresses. This is going to be much more manageable of a cost than if you're like, I have 20 ideas and I want to make all of these dresses, okay? That's going to be very costly, because each time you develop a style, and this is called the product development phase, there's a big cost to it. Again, I can't give you a specific number because everybody's different. Doing something very simple like a t-shirt is going to be less than doing like a coat. Okay, but I can tell you that I usually have told the people I mentor, and this is true for me, about $1,000 per style to develop something is what was true for me. I was doing like dresses and somewhat simple stuff, so it might be more for you. But that includes like pattern making and a sample. Samples can run you like $200-$300 depending on what it is. So you might develop a pattern, you might get a sample made. It might not be perfect. You might need to get a few samples made as you go back and tweak, so that can add up. That's fine, that's normal. But don't let anyone talk you into an insanely expensive development phase. And full service fashion houses will do this. Full service fashion development houses, I should say, will sometimes overcharge you at this stage. Okay, so I'm gonna do a whole video about that, don't worry, but that's just kind of my ballpark figure, okay? So you can see what I'm saying is start small, start with a small number of styles. No one knows you yet. No one's necessarily gonna buy from you. You don't need to do every idea you've ever had. Start with a small number of styles. That's what I recommend because it can really add up, right? Number 4, samples for your photo shoot. This is just something to keep in mind because when you're planning your photo shoot, if you have a bunch of styles and a bunch of colors, you may need to order a sample in each style and color. Just depending on what you're doing, that can add up. So that's just something to keep in mind too. And number 5 is a photo shoot. Now, this can be a big chunk of change because this is an area where you don't want to skimp, right? This is your one shot to hook your audience's attention and show them that you have this great product that's going to be worth buying, right? So you don't want to skimp on a crappy photo shoot that your neighbor does or something, right? Invest in this. My one exception is like, if the aesthetic and vibe of your brand really calls for it, maybe you have like this streetwear brand or something and you have hot friends and you can take pictures of them wearing your stuff on the street with your iPhone. If the aesthetic and the vibe of your particular brand calls for that, then do it. Otherwise, for 99% of us, you're going to want to invest in a really good photo shoot, especially for your first launch. Okay, and that can easily, by the way, run you $2,000-$3,000 for a professional. So keep that in mind. Production. So this is a big one, of course. It's going to vary completely on how many pieces per style you produce. Okay, and this is going to be the inventory, the actual products that you sell. So I recommend, again, finding someone who can do a small production run. And again, I'll talk about this in another video. If you can find somebody that can do 50 or 100 pieces per style, that's what you want to go with. A lot of these bigger manufacturers will have these high minimums like, oh, you have to do 1,000 pieces per style. That's not going to work for you. You could say, no, thank you, and keep shopping. Okay, so think about this. If you've got 4 styles and you're going to make 50 pieces per style, right? Plus the cost of your fabric. Now you're starting to get a sense of what things might cost for you at the production stage. Versus if you're doing 20 styles, which is way too much, and you're going with this place that has a 500 per piece minimum. Do you see what I'm saying? Hopefully I'm explaining this well, but you can see how that would be a huge expense versus starting small. Okay, so that's why I recommend that. Start small, save some of your ideas for next season. You don't need to do everything yet. You can kind of see what works. You can kind of see what people like and what don't like, what colors people like, what they don't, save things for the next season. Okay, number 7 is everything else. I put this in one category because it could be small or it could be pretty large, right? This is like you're paying for your Shopify platform every month. If you do any advertising, paying for Canva to do your marketing, if you hire a graphic designer, if you hire someone to help you with marketing or anything, advertising, that's where all these other costs lay. So those can vary wildly, just depending on you and what you want. So I will wrap it up there. I know I blew through these a little bit. Again, let me know in the comments what you want me to expand on, but I hope this gave you kind of an overview of at least things what might cost. And if something doesn't quite make sense, like if you're at the very, very beginning, the idea stage, things will make sense later on. All of these terms will make sense to you as you go. And I'll be explaining more in different videos. So my advice also is to get multiple quotes from people. So if you're visiting a pattern maker and you're like, I feel like they might be overcharging me, don't be afraid to go to someone else and get another quote. People do it all the time. Get 2 or 3 more quotes. It doesn't hurt. Same with a production partner or manufacturer. Get a few quotes, make sure that you're making the right decision. You don't need to rush into anything. So if I could give you a number, and I will try, I think honestly, it would be a bit hard to start a fashion brand for under $10,000 these days. Maybe if you're doing something super lean, you're doing the photo shoot yourself, let's say you're a photographer, and you're just doing a couple styles, you're producing a couple styles, or you're like me and you did your own patterns for some things. You could get away with maybe going under 10,000, but I think 10,000 is a pretty standard number. Maybe 15,000 if you don't want to be too restricted. So that's just a very, very general ballpark. Like I said, it totally depends on what you're doing and all those factors. So think long term, don't blow all your money on your first season. Think about the second season in the future, and we'll definitely be talking about a lot more of these elements. So comment down below if this helped. Please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in my next video.